There's a few exciting Nintendo Switch stories we have to talk about today, starting with a very brief recap of what I would call an underwhelming Nintendo Indie World Direct. Then we also have to cover some very interesting comments from Nintendo's president around his concern levels and the company's concern levels as a whole with the transition to the next-gen hardware. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with some brand new translations that we got around Nintendo's long-term strategy for Nintendo Switch Online and what it could mean for new content coming to the service in the future. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, we got a few different stories to get through today, and we have to kick it off with a quick discussion around the Nintendo Indie World Direct that aired earlier today, as in my personal opinion, just to get it out there, I was very underwhelmed by this event. Granted, I never go into Indie World Directs with the highest expectations, but this one for me overall felt like it was missing a big, major, mega feature game to either close out the show or even open up the show to get really hyped about, or just some big updates around existing games that I would have liked to see featured there. I had very low expectations for Hollow Knight Silksong. I'm glad that that was the case because, of course, we didn't see that featured there. I still think that's more likely to be part of a mainline direct at this point because of the hype behind it, but then we also didn't see things like TMNT Shredder's Revenge, as I was hopeful maybe we would get something like a release date for that game, or at least just another overview trailer with new gameplay. We did not see that game featured there. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, another one that I'm very pumped for around the corner, maybe some kind of new update around it, not there. However, my overall opinion with these indie directs is that they are a very good thing, because if Nintendo didn't have this as a separate standalone event, we would be looking at a lot of this footage during mainline directs, kind of taking away, in my opinion, from an otherwise super hype event. However, this was not all bad, don't get me wrong. There was definitely some standout titles that I will be checking out once they launch. Electhead was the first one that stood out to me. It has Mega Man vibes for me personally. I know it's not the same gameplay style as that, but if you took Mega Man and you made it more of a strategic puzzle style game where you have to figure out how to get through each room, that's what that game gave me, and it had a great soundtrack to boot, so I will definitely be checking out that one at launch. Then Soundfall looked interesting enough for me to at least pay some attention to it. It is a rhythm dungeon crawler, and it at least looked very fast paced, and I'm personally a fan of rhythm style games. I grew up on the Guitar Hero games, and it's definitely not something that's akin to that particular gameplay style, but whenever it comes to keeping in rhythm and also having some fun gameplay experiences alongside of it with a bomb soundtrack, I definitely do enjoy things like that, so I will at least give that one a second look when it gets closer to launch. Then Gunbrella is one that absolutely looks impressive to me, as it's a 2D side-scrolling game, but it has that great HD pixel art style that I'm becoming a big fan of, and the vibe of the world that they created in that game just looked intriguing to me, not to mention some of the unique bosses that I think will be available, and I'm sure that gameplay kind of has a Metroidvania feel to it. Not exactly, because there's different mechanics involved, but I at least got a little bit of that vibe, so I will definitely at least look into that one when it does launch. However, the two most hyped titles, this being one of them, from today's Indie World, don't actually launch until 2023, which is another drawback because, of course, we still have a while to go until we are in 2023, but this is one that will be on my radar when it does eventually launch. Then by far and away, the highlight of the entire event for me was another Crab's Treasure, as it claims to be a Souls-like game, and while the crab mechanic is kind of funny, just a different direction that they went to be a crab and you're going through like an ocean-style world, if you look at the gameplay mechanics of this game, that fast dodge rolling mechanic, clearly you guys should know at this point that I am a hardcore Souls fan, and this game promises to offer an intense challenge. It also stuck out to me as probably the most polished looking game out of all of these whenever it comes to the overall visual style. Like, yes, there were some more story-based games that also looked very nice graphically in this event, but when it comes to something with live fast action gameplay and a nice art style, this one takes the cake for me, and I'm personally fully planning on this point picking this game up day one when it launches. Another problem with it is it is quite a ways out, as it will not launch until 2023. However, this trailer sold me on the game, and I'm definitely excited to see what kind of level design, boss encounters, and weapon customization and upgrades and things that it has to offer. So that was the highlight for me. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the comments down below. I'm sure there was some games that I skipped over that didn't pop out to me that maybe did to you, so I want to hear from you on your overall thoughts of the presentation, start to finish. Were you really impressed today? Were you more like me and definitely more on the underwhelmed side, but maybe had some hidden gems in there? So please share all your thoughts and feelings on all things Nintendo World Indie Direct in the comments down below. Now, the next story we're talking about today has to do with the recent Nintendo quarterly financial briefing, as we are getting a lot of fresh translations now that the Q&A sessions have wrapped up and there's been some more time around questions that are asked directly from investors. And there was one very interesting comment that came from Nintendo's president around Nintendo's concern level when they talk about transitioning to future next-gen hardware, as clearly we have seen Nintendo see this kind of success with consoles before, and then the follow-up to the console is sometimes a total flop when you talk about something like the Wii going to the Wii U, and Nintendo is definitely very aware of this. And to kick off the conversation of why it's in the news today, I do want to hop over to VGC quickly, read through the article together where it basically outlines exactly what was asked and Nintendo's mindset and potential look into their strategy on how they will treat transitioning generations this time around. So let's quickly read through this article together. Nintendo says the transition to its next console is a major concern for us. The company wants to alleviate the risk of resetting its user base, says Furukawa. Speaking during a Japanese investor Q&A this week, translated by VGC contributor Robert Sefazan, Furukawa said the company planned to alleviate the risk of resetting its 100 million plus user base by building long-term relationships with its users, partly via Nintendo accounts and by using its IP outside of gaming. Furukawa was replying to a question about how Nintendo has been able to maintain a strong game release schedule 6 years into the Switch's life cycle and what his thoughts were on transitioning to its next hardware platform. We have already announced a portion of our software roadmap releasing up to next spring, he said. Unlike the past, we continue to have a large variety of games scheduled to be released even beyond 5 years of release. This is because the Nintendo Switch had such a smooth launch, allowing us to focus all of our development resources on a single platform. However, the question of whether or not we will be able to just as smoothly transition from Nintendo Switch to the next generation of hardware is a major concern for us. Based on our experiences with the Wii, Nintendo DS, and other hardware, it is very clear that one of the major obstacles is how to easily transition from one hardware to the next. To help alleviate this risk, we're focusing on building long-term relationships with our customers. While we will continue to launch new software on the Nintendo Switch, we will also provide new services that also use Nintendo accounts and other IP outside of gaming software. We intend for this to help build a lasting impact with our customers. Furukawa previously appeared to hint that some form of backwards compatibility could be utilized for its next game console in order to maintain and expand Switch's audience of 100 million plus users. So in my opinion, this is a very good news article because it's clearly Nintendo going out of their way to acknowledge the fact that yes, they've been at this point at the top of the mountain before when it comes to having a massive hit home console, and they've seen a follow-up launch with a steep drop-off in sales. As I remember the Wii era of gaming where it seemed like everybody had the Nintendo Wii and was talking about it regularly, and then they launched the Wii U and everybody asked, what is that? And nobody understood that it wasn't just some kind of tablet add-on controller and it was a true next-gen successor. And while the Wii U had a fantastic library of games, it seemed like nobody adopted it, and clearly they didn't in the masses compared to 100 million plus units sold of the Wii, and then the drop off to 13 million units sold for the lifetime of the Wii U, prompting an early launch to the Nintendo Switch, where a lot of the games that would have been planned to release on the Wii U were ultimately pushed to the Switch, such as Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's a cross-platform release as opposed to just something that would have been launched for longer on the Wii U. Nintendo actually had to choose to cut off the life cycle of the Wii U early because of it not gaining traction over the course of the life cycle of that console. And so for me personally, I'm glad to see them acknowledging that the Switch is back in this territory of being a very successful system, and the follow-up to it is going to be extremely important. And it's interesting to hear them talk about things like outside of gaming IP, try to create relationships with customers. Are they talking about us using our Nintendo accounts and going into like their Nintendo World theme parks and maybe getting the points for going and seeing the new Nintendo movies and expanding into different worlds like that? Maybe they're talking about more mobile integration in the future and different Nintendo based apps. Like, I don't know exactly where their mindset is with non-gaming related IP and maintaining a customer relationship, but one thing that does stick out to me is their mindset on backwards compatibility, as I think when you have a user base this big, you have to be backwards compatible on your next console. And I think that's going to be a very important step in Nintendo's strategy when they do unveil whatever the next generation hardware is that, hey, this also plays your giant, amazing library of Switch games that they've achieved with this current platform. That all rolls forward to the next one. And then they also bring over Nintendo Switch Online in a big way, which we will talk about in the next story here in a second. So I want to hear from you guys on this story in particular. What do you think about these comments from Nintendo's president? Do you think that they are in the right mindset to capitalize and bring this 100 million plus users over to whatever their next generation hardware is? Or do you think we may see something like a steep drop off and decline when they do choose to launch their true next generation hardware? So I do look forward to hearing from you guys on all things Nintendo and their future roadmap in the comments down below. Now, the last story we're talking about today has to do with Nintendo Switch Online and the future roadmap for this service, as we are continuing to get new translations from the recent Q&A session at Nintendo's most recent investors meeting, and of course, there are questions asked specifically around Nintendo's mindset and Nintendo Switch Online, as clearly we are seeing Nintendo treat the service very seriously, and it is a key part of their business roadmap going forward. And the reason it is in the news today is because Furukawa was directly asked about what Nintendo has planned for the service going forward and how they will continue to grow their already strong subscriber base for NSO. So to quickly kick off this conversation, let's hop back to VGC and read through a detailed article of what was said here and a quick breakdown of where Nintendo's mindset is at with NSO in 2022 and beyond. Nintendo says it will continue to expand Switch Online throughout this year. Furukawa promises to expand services and create new content for subscribers. Speaking during a Japanese investor Q&A this week, translated by VGC contributor Robert Cephazon, Shintaro Furukawa claimed that subscribers of its paid service had gradually increased since it last reported subscriber numbers of 32 million in September 2021. Since that figure was published, Nintendo launched the pricier expansion pack tier, which includes a library of N64 and Mega Drive games, as well as access to DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon 2, and Animal Crossing. The standard Nintendo Switch Online subscription includes a selection of benefits as well as the ability to play Switch games online. Asked about subscriber retention and if Nintendo planned to add any additional content to the subscription service, Furukawa said he believed it was important to continue to add value to Switch Online. The total subscribers of Nintendo Switch Online has not been updated from the 32 million subscribers we disclosed last September, but it is gradually increasing as the sales of Nintendo Switches increases, he said. Of course, there are customers who allow their subscribership to expire and then they don't renew, so we believe it is important to continue releasing software that allows players to continue enjoying not only online play but also enhances their overall experience. We will continue to expand our services and create new content for our customers throughout this year. It has been heavily speculated that both Game Boy consoles could be next to join Nintendo Switch Online Classic Games offering, with multiple sources claiming last year that Game Boy and Game Boy Color games were likely to be added really soon. So to quickly break that down, it definitely sounds like Nintendo hasn't seen a huge jump in subscribers from the 32 million that they previously reported on, as they referenced it as slow and steady growth. But you do have to keep in mind that now a whole portion of people who were previously only paying that $20 annually are now strapped in for the $50 annual price point if they did indeed upgrade to the new expansion pack offering. However, that expansion pack did not drive a ton of brand new subscribers from the looks of things so far, which is why I do think Nintendo is aware that they have to continue to add value to this service to both keep existing subscribers happy and renewing, and to also gain new subscribers at the end of the day. And 32 million active subscribers on a 100+ million install base is no small accomplishment. That is definitely a lot of revenue in Nintendo's pocket, and I do think that they see this as a cross-generational service that they are just in the phase one of right now. Yes, there are a lot of features missing from it right now, but if we can talk about around the corner those Game Boy family of systems hitting the console, especially Game Boy Advance being added into the expansion pack with some killer titles, I think that helps sell it. Then we get the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Original added in as part of maybe the base NSO service, and you still have new bonus DLCs added in from time to time. I think eventually the $50 annual price point, especially with new enhanced online features that they hopefully add in over the course of time, becomes a no-brainer and something that you just need to sign up for when you buy the new Switch. Hopefully by the Switch 2, we're talking about things like GameCube games potentially being added in. I think that would come with another price tier increase, but this is clearly something that is going to continue to be a focus for Nintendo. And while there's no clear direct statement on what they're planning to add next, they will absolutely continue to treat this service like a priority and add more and more content to keep growing their revenue year in and year out with Nintendo Switch Online. So I think it is primarily positive future for this service. But at this point in the video, guys, I want to hear from you on everything we talked about today. Share with me your indie world takeaways and which games you're most hyped for. Definitely let me know what you think Nintendo's planning as far as backwards compatibility with the next generation Switch. And then share with me your overall thoughts and feelings on where Nintendo Switch Online is at today, what you want to see added to the service going forward, and when you think we may see brand new systems added into the service. And do you think it is indeed the Game Boy family of systems that are coming next? So I look forward to hearing from you guys, regardless of your thoughts and opinions on everything we talked about today, in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't already, where we discuss a very interesting back and forth between Nintendo's president and a notable Bloomberg reporter around Nintendo's next Switch revision plans and whether or not that is actually in existence. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.